Hello and welcome back to Suburban Hunt 365. I am DJ. We are back in the reload room again today. And in today's episode, what we're going to do is continue on with our muzzleloader series here on this channel. And for those of you that saw the last muzzleloader video we did the White Lightning by Harvester, which featured the Crushed Rib Sabots, and that's what really prompted us to get this video down, is because several of the subscribers that we have mentioned about going to the Crushed Rib Sabots and tightening those groups up. So that is exactly what we've done. For those of you that didn't see that video that we did, I'll go ahead and throw the link above. You can go check that video out after this one. But what we've done is I've got now, I ordered these from Harvester, so they are a Harvester, but they're using the XPT by Hornady, and this is a 50 cal Sabot with the crushed rib, and then the 240 grain projectile, again, the Hornady XPT. And the reason that I chose to do this one is because it had the crushed rib Sabots, but we've already tested the 240 grain XPTs. They didn't do so hot. We've tested 23 up today. This will be the 24th, and the XPTs came in 21st place, so they're pining for last there. So they didn't do great. So I'm really hoping to see that these crushed rib Sabots really bring those in, or let's see how they react all together. So for those of you that haven't seen the XPT video, I'll go ahead and I'll throw that link above. That way you can go check that one again after we finish with today's video. So for those of you that are new to the channel, what we're going to be doing is our pellet test. And what I'm doing is I'm taking those pellets and we're going to, or those projectiles rather, and we're going to be running them with different pellets. We're going to be running our 777. Now these are 50 grain pellets. We're going to be running a 100 and 150 grain test. Then we're going to move into our Pyrodex, which is also a 50 grain pellet. We're going to do a 100 and 150 grain test. The White Hots are next. They are 100 and 150 grain pellets also. Then we're moving into the Firestars, also by 777, but these come in with a 33 grain pellet. The pellet actually looks like a little bit of a star, which is where they got their name Firestar, but it's a 33 grain pellet. So it takes 3 pellets to get to that 100 grain equivalent, and then the 4, it's about 120-ish, so it's closer to the 150 that we're going to be running. So with this one, we're going to be running a 3 pellet and a 4 pellet group. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to be running 777's Magnum pellets, which is a 60 grain pellet, and we will be running a 120 grain, so a 2 pellet test with that one. Now all these groups and all these pellets today are going to be shot with the 209A primer by Federal. So what we're going to be shooting it out of is going to be my Optima V2. It is the 1-28 twist, but it's also got the Conus scope on top of it. Not an awesome scope, but it's what it came with when I bought it from Walmart. So for those of you that just getting into this, go to Walmart, get you your Optima V2. It's got the scope on there. It's about $500-600 bucks for the package, and you're ready to rock and roll. So that is our test, that is our setup, that's what we are going to do. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into it with the 777 100 grain pellet test. Alright, well that one came in at 2 5/8 of an inch. That first round's up there in the top right, it's in the white, it's a little bit harder to see, but it came in at 2 5/8. Not really what I was hoping to see. With the Hornady, with the regular Sabots, we got a 1 1/4 inch group, so we've got a wider group now with the Crushed Rib Sabots. Not awesome, not what I was wanting to see, not what I was hoping would happen. But let's look at our velocities here. We got a 1577, 1414, and a 1397. It's a pretty wide spread there on some of that. So that's inherent with the pellets though. Each pellet's going to be a little bit different, so what you put in there, whether it's 2 pellets or 3 pellets, is going to be inconsistent at best. But that's just inherent with the pellets. With the ease of the loading, you're sacrificing consistency. But I'll get off my soapbox. Let's go ahead and let's move into the 777 150 grain test. Let's see how that does. All right, that group came in at 3 3/4 of an inch. It's kind of in that top right hand corner the same way. You got that one shot that's off the paper, a little bit harder to see there. But the interesting thing is that this 3 3/4 of an inch group was the exact same size as the standard Hornady sabots that we had. So both of these with 150 grain 777 are running 3/4 of an inch, or 3 3/4 of an inch. So no change in that one. So right now, the Hornady is doing better with the 7s, the 100 grain test. Not looking great for these crushed rib sabots right out of the gate, but we are far, far, far from over. So looking at these velocities, I do apologize. That first round did not pick up on the corner graph there, but we do have a 1904 and an 1829. Again, the spread because of the fact that we are using pellets. So let's move on. Hopefully we got some better news down the range here. Let's go with Pyrodex 100 grains. Let's see what we get out of that. All right, guys, that group came in at 3 inches. Again, not too terrible, but we're kind of on par with what we've seen. Ironically, this one is just the same as the last one did. This one is the exact same size as the Hornady with the standard sabots. So we've had two groups that are the exact same as the previous with the different sabots, and then one where the crushed rib didn't do as good as the standard sabots. So right now it's really not looking great for the crushed rib sabots out of my particular rifle, but let's keep moving on and let's get into the Pyrodex 150 grain charge. All right, Pyrodex coming in at 3 3/8 of an inch, so a little bit bigger than the 100 grain test. But the interesting thing about this one is that when you look back at the Hornady regular sabots, the 150 grain charge of Pyrodex gave us a 5 1/2 of an inch group. So in comparison, the Pyrodex 150 grains rather, is doing a lot better than the ones with just the standard Hornady sabots. So there we go. So we got that very first one with the 100 grain charge where the crushed ribs didn't do awesome. But this one, that's right at 2 inches better of a group than what we got with the standard Hornady sabots. So I was hoping a lot more of this would happen, but so far we've only had the one. So let's keep moving on. Let's go ahead and let's get into the White Hots 100 grain charge. All right, now we're getting back into that 2 inch thing. So now we got a 2 7/8 of an inch, so just right there below that 3 inch mark. But we are getting better, and that is with the White Hots 100 grains. Pretty decent group. I like it when it's kind of symmetrical like that, nice round group. This one came in again at 2 7/8, but in the previous video with the XPT, the standard ones, it came in at 3 1/2 inches. So we've got about a 1/2 inch better grouping with the crushed rib sabots with the White Hot 100 grains than we did with the regular Hornady sabots. So there we go. We're starting to pick up steam as far as the crushed ribs doing a little bit better. So we've got one that's doing worse, two that are the exact same, and two that are doing better so far. So let's keep moving on. Let's go to the White Hot 150 grains and see what kind of group we get out of that. All right, now that's a group I can deal with. That group came in at 2 1/4 of an inch. You got those two right there touching each other. I do love it when that happens. They did kind of go 1, 2, 3, but still we got two touching at 2 1/4 of an inch difference. So that's pretty outstanding, I think. Now the White Hots 150 grain charge from the previous Hornady load came in at 5 1/4. So that is 3 inches better with the crushed rib sabots than we did with the Hornadys. So now we're starting to separate that crushed rib with the old ones, but we're gonna have to see how that average pans out at the end, which we will go through that data here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and let's move into the Firestars 3 pellets and see if we can continue this trend. Oh no! That last one. I thought we were doing pretty good. We had the 1 and we 2, and then that last one just threw off pretty bad there. That caused us to have a 5 inch group on that. That sucks. That sucks. And that's where the guys come in and say, well, 3-round group's not good enough. I get that, guys, but if I had one more round every round I do, I'm going to go broke making these videos. But so with this 3-round at 5 inches, that's definitely going to hurt our average overall, but it doesn't do us any favors in the comparison between the crushed ribs and the standard, because our standard with this came in at 2 7/8 of an inch. So just under a 3-inch group. So with this one, we have a 2-inch decrease in accuracy with the crushed rib sabots. So it seems like it's really going to be dependent on what powder you're using, on whether you're going forward or backwards with these crushed rib sabots. But then again, the Firestars actually do pretty good. I gotta admit that they're doing pretty well on average. But again, we'll look at that data here in just a few minutes. All right, let's go ahead and let's keep moving on. Firestars 4 pellets. Holy crap. That is a 7 3/4 of an inch group. That was absolutely horrible. Yeah, if I would be running these XPTs, there's no way in heck I would be running the 4 pellets. I wouldn't be running the 3 pellets either with that 5-inch group that we just saw a second ago. So yeah, Firestars are not doing any favors with these at all. Now that being said, when we go to the chart, you'll see the Firestars really didn't do that great with the White Lightnings either. So comparing the Sabots, the Firestars with the crushed rib Sabots and the White Lightning, they didn't do so hot either. So it seems like the crushed rib Sabots don't really care that much for the Firestars. But again, we'll go back over that when we get to the data part. Let's go ahead and let's finish this up with the 777 Magnums 60 grain pellets. All right, guys, sorry about that. I should have warned you before we actually went to the footage. You're going to see that one projectile, that hole that's in the bottom left-hand corner there, that was part of the previous set that we did with the Firestars. I decided rather than wasting another target, we'd go ahead and try it, and it did work out, but we're ignoring that bottom left because that was part of the Firestars. So we're looking at the one that's just to the left of the bullseye there and the 2 that are above it. And that comes in at 5 3/8 of an inch. Not awesome, not awesome. Especially when you look at the previous one that came in at 3 3/4 of an inch. So yet again, we are doing worse with the crushed rib Sabots than we were with the standard. So I'm really kind of curious to see how that's going to do, because we did better on some and we did worse on some. So where is that going to land us? So let's find out. Let's go ahead and let's dig into our data sheet. All right, looking at our data sheet here, I went ahead and I put this under the Hornady because it is a 240 grain XPT Hornady projectile that we're using. Even though we are using the Harvester Crushed Rib Sabots, the projectile is a Hornady projectile. So that also gives us a better look at exactly what our comparisons are. So looking over here at the 777 grains, we have a 2 5/8 of an inch group with the crushed rib, a 1 1/4 inch group with the standard. So 1 to the standard there, and then we have a 3 3/4 inch group, which was from both of them. So that's a wash. And then with the Pyrodex 100 grains, we had a 3-inch group on both of them. Again, a wash. And then we moved to the Pyrodex. The Pyrodex 150 grain gives us a 3 3/8 of an inch group, which is, like I said a minute ago, that's almost 2 inches better than we did with the standard. So we got 1 for the crushed ribs on that. Now, then we go over here to our White Hot 100 grains. We have a 2 7/8 group, so basically a 3-inch group. And then with the standard, we had a 3 1/2 inch group, so a 1/2 inch better. So moving forward, we have the White Hot 150 grains came in at 2 1/4, and that gave us a 5 1/4 inch group with the standard. So that's a 3-inch difference there, which is fantastic. So moving over to the Firestar 3 pellets, as we saw earlier, that's where stuff kind of goes sideways on us. That is a 5-inch group with the crushed ribs and only a 2 7/8 of an inch, so a 2-inch group worse with those compared to the standard ones. So moving on here, we've also got the 777 Firestars, which that came out at abysmal 7 3/4 of an inch, which is definitely not going to help us out here. So we have a 4 5/8 of an inch group with the standards, and then over here with the 777 Magnums 2 pellets, we have a 5 3/8 of an inch group with the crushed ribs, and a 3 3/4 of an inch with the standard. So let's see here. So looking across all 9 of these here, we have 2 that were a wash, so the same on both the crushed rib and the standard sabots. But then we have 3 tests that seemed better with the crushed rib sabots, but then we had 4 tests that were worse with the crushed rib sabots. So let's get into what actually matters over here, and let's look at our average group. The average group for today with the 240 grain XPTs and the crushed rib sabots is a 4-inch average. And then you can see right there that the 240 grains standard with the regular sabots has a 3.722, which ultimately means that that is going to land us in 22nd place. So that means on average in this test, the 240 grain XPTs are pretty much identical with crushed rib sabots or with the standard sabots. Now again, guys, that's not what I was hoping for. I was really hoping that with what we saw with the Scorpion White Lightnings, that we were going to just knock these out of the park. The 240 grain was really going to hone in, and it was going to turn into my next favorite round, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The gun just doesn't like the projectile, and the sabot didn't make big enough difference across the board to make that difference in the average. Now again, there are ones where it is 3 inches better on one end and then 2 inches better on the other side. It's just, you know, it's back and forth, but on average they're pretty much the exact same. Now looking up here, if we move up to the Scorpion White Lightnings and you see the 777 Firestar 3 pellets and 4 pellets, you'll see that we have a 4.5 inch group and a 4 3/4 inch group, which was way bigger than all the other ones. And I honestly think that if it wasn't for the Firestars, we'd have got a lot better group out of the Harvester 300 grain Scorpion White Lightnings, because they did come in 5th, but you can see the Firestars just don't like it. So, and from what I'm seeing with the data that I have, if I'm going to be using anything in a crushed rib sabot, I am not looking for Firestars, because consistently now, 2 tests now are showing that the crushed rib sabots don't like the Firestar. So we'll go down here to the bottom where our list is. You can see that our 340 grain board driver ELDXs and the 290 grain board driver FTXs are still on top up there. But then you come all the way down here to 22nd, just below the 240 grain XPTs with the standard sabots, and we have our 240 grain XPTs with the crushed rib sabots. All right, guys, so looking over everything, they are dead even. Yes, we did have some that were better with the crushed rib sabots, but we also had some that were better with the standard sabots. But if I was going to take anything away from this, what I would suggest is that if you're using the crushed rib sabots, maybe stay away from the Firestars. I know I will. I will not be using a Firestar with a crushed rib sabot when it comes to hunting. All right, guys, if you guys have stuck with us this far, I cannot say thank you enough. I really do appreciate you guys spending time with us here on this channel as we go through the different projectiles and going through the data to see what works best, at least in my rifle, right? Because every rifle is different. At the end of the day, you will have to go to the range and test your rifle. But looking at this test, the 240 grain XPTs just don't do awesome in mine, whether I have a crushed rib sabot or not. Kind of ended up being a wash. Again, it's not what I hoped for, but that's kind of where we landed. But guys, if you can, if you just would, please real quick, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And then, as I've said every week so far, comment down below, let us know what you think about this. Tell me that I'm crazy that crushed rib sabots do amazing in your gun, because a couple of you have already, and it just did not work that way for me. It really sucks, because I'm really looking for those top 10, you know, top 5 projectiles that I can really start to test and try to get out there and harvest this year. Season is just around the corner for us, guys. At the time of this video, just a few weeks away. So guys, again, thank you so much for sticking with us. From Suburban Hunt 365, I'm DJ. Catch you guys on the next one.